Welcome once again to another edition of Tim's Vinyl Confessions. I'm Tim Durling. Thank you for tuning in. Wanted to do a new episode, and this weekend is a good time to do one. Thought I'd do one about Queensrÿche. Got a couple of birthdays in the Queensrÿche camp. February 19th, Todd LaTorre, who's capably been handling the lead singer position in Queensrÿche for, I guess, about 5 years now, celebrates a birthday. And on the 23rd, one of the founding members, Michael or Whip Wilton, is celebrating his birthday. So I did a Queensrÿche vinyl episode, didn't have much vinyl. If I ever get a significant amount more, I'll do a follow-up episode on that. I'm missing quite a few. I don't even have Ryche for order on vinyl. So this one will be my Queensrÿche CD collection on Tim's Vinyl Confessions. And Queensrÿche were a band that started in '82. Debut EP came out independently, and then it was picked up by EMI, and it goes on from there. Their first EP was not the first CD that they came out with, but we'll kind of just explore that. But I will put these out in the order that the albums originally were released. So the first Queensrÿche release is their self-titled EP, originally released in 1983 on their own 206 Records label, and they were picked up by EMI America. And this CD was actually issued not until 1988 by EMI Capital, and this is a U.S. original edition. It's not a remaster. I don't have any of the remastered ones, as you can see on the side there, EMI USA. The original record and cassette had 4 songs on it. This CD has 5. It added a 5th track, Prophecy, which was a song from their early days. The version that's on here was recorded for the Ryche for Order album and not used. Kind of cool that they threw it on here. Very metal looking logo and kind of a brooding band shot there. The CD itself, see, that's the like the Operation Mindcrime Queensrÿche logo they're using there, so that kind of pinpoints it as 1988 when it came out. Lyrics to all the songs, including Prophecy, in here, and a little bit of a write-up of the original credits, and also a write-up about when the CD was issued. So that's the first Queensrÿche release. First full-length Queensrÿche album came out in 1984, The Warnings. This, I'm guessing, was probably the first CD released by Queensrÿche as a new album. Like, would it have come out the same time that the record cassette came out? Again, still very metal-looking on the album cover. That's what the side of it looks like. And back cover, this one has Take Hold of the Flame, of course, probably the best-known song on here. The song Warning, Roads to Madness. This, I think, a lot of people's favorite Queensrÿche album from the early days. Slightly different look to the CD. Not much of a logo there. You can see the EMI Manhattan, that square logo. The American EMI morphed into different sort of sub-labels. Nothing inside of it for credits whatsoever. This is the generic, proper care and usage of your CDs that they used to put in. There's no lyrics or credits in here. Fortunately, there are on the record. I suppose there's always the option to upgrade to the remastered version. Next up, I think this was the first Queensrÿche album I ever got, although it wasn't. It was many years later. I think it was like in '93. First thing I actually bought by Queensrÿche after I got into them was Ryche for Order. This is the CD. This is a US version, again on EMI Records. I don't have this one on vinyl as of yet. I'll track it down one of these days. They had quite a different look going on, as you'll quickly see. That's what a lot of the EMI albums look like. They had the band name in sort of bluish green and a pinkish red, whatever you want to call it, for the album title. This is sort of their glammed out look a little bit. Had some crazy clothes, crazy hair going on there. Much better visible on the vinyl, of course. This one has Walk in the Shadows, was a well-known song off here. I Will Remember. They've done Unplugged. They did that Unplugged. And the first thing I ever heard from Queensrÿche was their version of Dal Bellows' Gonna Get Close to You. Weird song, but very cool. And that's all on here. So here we have the CD itself. Again, not really a logo, but there it is. And I'll show you again here. Another band shot. Glammed out of their tree. But not like Poison glam. It was sort of more of a, I don't know what you'd call this, new romantic look for them. It was it's an interesting, it only lasted for this album. Crazy hair going on. Check out Jeff Tate's hair right in the middle there. Wow. This one does have all the lyrics, all the credits, all the songs. There's actually something in here worth looking at inside Rage for Order, besides the pictures. Of course, many would say the definitive Queensrÿche album was up next. Operation Mindcrime came out in 1988, and I'm thinking because it was the most successful thing they'd put out to date, that's when they decided to, or the record company decided to reissue the debut EP. Because as I talked about in my top 10 EPs episode, sometimes those EPs are the last thing to get reissued, sometimes they don't. So here's Operation Mindcrime. This is just an original CD from '88. It's a US version. I think I talked about this in my vinyl episode. The color bleed, if my good friend Matt Phillips was here, he could describe it better, but it seems to me there's a lot of loss here. Not so much here, but the white on red and the red on white is a little bit too sharp, I think, and you can't read everything. This isn't so bad. Well, down here in the bottom corner, there's actually credits there, like, 1988 EMI Manhattan Records and the all rights reserved or whatever. You can't read any of it. Kind of a bad decision on whoever put that together. It's the CD itself. One of the visuals there, Dr. X, I believe that is. A lot of talk about how this is a classic concept record. Ends up on a level. It's just a great album. You don't need to dig into the whole concept. It's just great music, well played. This is the first time they worked with Peter Collins. There's the actually called the Mindcrime logo there. And picture of the band, considerably toned down in image from their previous record, and some credits there as well. So now we're into the next Queensrÿche album, the big Queensrÿche album, the first platinum one, and then Mindcrime was certified platinum later. Of course, I'm talking about Empire. Well, I dug the booklet. I'll show you. I don't understand the concept. Well, I understand the Tri-Rike logos here, and I like this album cover, but it almost looks like they took an image and blew it up. It looks pixelated. I don't know if that was the intention. It just looks, I don't know, it's got a different look. Again, Matt could put this in terms of, he's a designer, so he could put this in better terms, but it just looks like it's unfinished to me, like this was, they said, oh, just put it out. It seems to me it would look better with a crisper white outline around the Tri-Rike, but it's not my baby, as they say. This is a US version again. All these have been US versions so far. There's more band pictures inside of it, but I'll show you what the CD itself looks like. Getting a little bit more stylized, a little bit better known. Of course, this album was really, really big. On the on rock radio, you still hear the song Empire, Your Best I Can, Another Rainy Night. Of course, Silent Lucidity came from this album. The acoustic, their big ballad, which is top 10 single, and the one song, if you know one song by Queensrÿche, it's that song, even if you don't know who it is or what it's called. So, let's take a look at the credits. This one has the most extensive credits yet, which makes sense. Band photos there. Some various imagery as well, and all the lyrics. And credits for Empire. And this one, I had something else stuck inside of here. One of my coworkers, Eric, gave me some old ticket stubs of his. I made an album about that on my Tim's Final Confessions Facebook page. He actually went to see Queensrÿche in concert on the Empire Tour at the Memorial Coliseum in Fort Wayne, June 2nd, 1991, and there's the stub, so I just decided to put it inside the CD. Interesting to note, cost $17.50 to see Queensrÿche at the peak of their success in 1991. Now, to me, 1991 doesn't sound like that long ago, but you're not going to see Queensrÿche or most bands of that era for $17.50 anymore, even if they're playing a smaller venue. That's just how things have changed. So, the Empire Tour was, the Empire album was successful, very successful, kept them on the road for a long, long time, and in its sort of the wake of that success, Operation Mindcrime was certified platinum, and people kind of went back and said, oh yeah, this one too. And so they started incorporating, I don't know if they were doing it from the start of the Empire Tour or not, but they would have a section where they did the Operation Mindcrime album. So of course it was commemorated in a, I guess you'd call it a multimedia set. It was something kind of unheard of at the time, called Operation Live Crime. And originally this came out in a big box that had a VHS of the concert, and it had a CD. Now my VHS never worked right. I bought it used, and the sound would fade in and out. So it was really annoying to watch. So I got rid of that, but I kept the CD that came with it. So this is the Operation Live Crime CD. So if you look there on the side, again, this is American. Watching them do this live is what got me into this band. It was very impressive. So the CD itself looks like, and the inner sleeve here. So, although the VHS tape, and all my VHS tapes have kind of gone by the wayside, I do have it on DVD. It's available on DVD. And this DVD was originally released in 2001, so it's in sort of an earlier one, and it's got some Easter eggs here. There's some bonus features, and there's a couple of extra live cuts that are on here. I'll show you what. See, the DVD itself doesn't look all that different than the CD, and it comes with just a little booklet here, which also shows all of the Queensrÿche albums available up to that point. So it was very successful, and there was a long gap between the next Queensrÿche album. It eventually came out in fall of 1994. So at this point, this would have been the first Queensrÿche album that I bought as an active new fan, and it was called Promised Land. So this came out in 1994 on EMI. This is actually one of the only Canadian CDs for Queensrÿche that I have. That's what it looks like on the side. Sort of a concept record, not quite as heavy as their previous stuff. Some good songs on here. It was not the easiest listen. It was it took quite a few listens to basically get what they were trying to say. Pretty extensive packaging. You see there's a Ryche logo sort of embossed on the CD itself. And underneath we have like what looks like a wood carving of the Ryche logo. So that's been sort of their constant thing. Big booklet that came with this, multi-panel booklet, kind of begging for a vinyl. I don't have this on vinyl, although it's available. So we've got this long totem pole type of image. So Queensrÿche at the top, but I've never looked. I could easily look, I suppose, on Discogs. This entire image probably makes up what the vinyl looks like. And on the back we have somebody with a nail in their head, which can't feel too good, and all the lyrics and the credits, and for Promised Land. And then another pretty lengthy gap between albums. 3 more years went by, and by this time, even though Queensrÿche were never part of the mainstream hard rock, here comes the dreaded word, pop metal, in a way they kind of got lumped in with it. They did have a big power ballad hit, and they were seen as sort of not a current band. Although, ironically enough, they were from Seattle. That's kind of something that is unique about them. So they knew all these Seattle bands that were coming out. There was no animosity there. So the next album came out in '97. Here in the Now Frontier. Here, H-E-A-R. You can see all these ears and jars here. That's Hugh Syme designing this cover art. Kind of, you can tell by looking at it if you're familiar with his work. This is an American CD, and I really like this album. This album, to me, is sort of overlooked in the Queensrÿche catalog. It's very dry sounding. Doesn't have the big reverb drum sound that they'd had in the past. I just like every song on this album a lot, and it was the first time that they had an album that didn't perform, and it was one of the last ones they did for a major label. It was their last one for EMI. The American EMI branch basically, as I read, reorganized themselves out of business. I don't know how they did that, but I really like all the songs on here. I mean, Voice Inside You, Reach, Hit the Black, Anytime, Anywhere. I like this album a lot, and there were no songs on this that really got much for play, except maybe Sign of the Times. Got a little bit of rock radio play, but then again, not that much. And inside of it, very much like you'd see, not so much Rush as far as Hugh Sign, but Dream Theater. A lot of the visuals inside here look a lot like Dream Theater. This is also the last Queensrÿche album that founding member, guitarist, and heavy co-write songwriter Chris DeGarmo took part in. He's never appeared on another album by Queensrÿche as official band member, and some might say some have said that was the start of, you know, a decline, and I don't agree with that necessarily, but it was definitely the end of their big commercial period. But we're not done. There's a lot more Queensrÿche to get to. 1999, and again in the fall, but not as long a wait, the next Queensrÿche album came out. This is called Q2K. Maybe a little dated reference, but Y2K was talked about quite heavily. So you've got that as if it's a key that fits into something. Kind of a cool thing to do with the Ryche logo. Now I have a Canadian CD, which is unique in this case. This was the lone Queensrÿche album that came out on Atlantic Records, but it didn't come out on Atlantic Records in Canada, just in the States and in most of the world. Canada, it was distributed by Anthem Records, which is Ryche's label, which kind of makes perfect sense. But this is kind of unique, so it's got an Anthem catalog number on it. Kind of a circuit board looking feel to this. This is what the disc itself looked like. And again, sort of a distressed, digitized version of the Ryche. And inside the booklet, I'll show you what's... I like what they did here. It's kind of a... So the 5 band members. This time, instead of Chris DeGarmo, it's Kelly Gray, who still plays with Jeff Tate to this day. But Kelly Gray was an early bandmate of Jeff Tate and the band Myth, and he actually produced this album as well. Kelly Gray was a fairly well-known producer in the rock realm at the time. He produced Candlebox, and they were a fairly successful band for a couple of years. Again, another Seattle band. So the lyrics were very digitized looking, I guess, for the font that they used. Not a bad album. I didn't like it as well as Here in the Now Frontier. So in the year 2000, EMI or Capitol or whoever is running that label or distributing it decided it was time for a best of, and they put out the Queensrÿche Greatest Hits, which in all reality they only had one, but kind of a primer, I guess, for Queensrÿche, and this is a US version. As far as things that are different on here, not a lot. There is a song here called Chasing Blue Sky, which was a new track at the time, or it didn't appear in any of the other albums. And there's the other different song on here is called Someone Else, which is a song that appeared on Promised Land. That was just a piano vocal song. This one is a full band version. Like most of the Queensrÿche CDs, you'll see the CD, take it out of the tray, and there's some variation of the Ryche logo. And we'll take a look at what's inside the booklet of Queensrÿche's Greatest Hits. Basically, a little bit of information about each of the songs and where they came from. Write-up by Paul Sutter, who wrote for Kerrang! Magazine, a British rock writer. And just a single picture of the group on stage, and that's Queensrÿche's Greatest Hits. Next thing to come out was in 2001. By this time they'd got off major label. They were on to Sanctuary, which was distributed by, well, they were distributed by Sony in the States, distributed by EMI in Canada. And this is Live Evolution. They did a series of shows where they would break the setup into suites, they called them. And this is an Empire Promised Land suite on disc 1. And, oh, sorry, there's 2 discs here. So they would go basically in chronological order. The EP Warning Rage Suite is first half, then the Mindcrime Suite unto itself. Then we have the Empire Promised Land, and then finally Here and Now Frontier Q2K. A lot of songs on here, so they would play these long shows. This is actually a Canadian Columbia House version of Live Evolution. 2-disc set, and picture of the band. A little bit of a write-up here, and some thanks. Just a few pictures here too. Next Queensrÿche album came out. Again, they're still on Sanctuary at this point. In 2003, it was called Tribe, sort of a tribal marking of what is supposed to be the Queensrÿche logo. This is a Canadian version too, Sanctuary, distributed by EMI. Different album, a few decent songs on here. I never really grasped a hold of it, but what the big selling point was for a lot of people, I'll show you this picture of the band. The band depicted for the first time as a four-piece. So Kelly Gray had left at this point, but Chris DeGarmo did take part in co-writing. I don't want to overestimate here, but he co-wrote 4 of the 10 songs on here. It's not like they were sounding like classic Queensrÿche, but the idea that DeGarmo was back writing with them was a big deal. Kind of a sense of family. Of course, even he didn't rejoin the band, so that was a sort of a one-off thing. And that tour was chronicled and released the next year, in 2004, as The Art of Live. And one of the songs that DeGarmo co-wrote was The Art of Life. This one has some different songs on it, like Tribe, Sign of the Times, Open, Losing Myself, Della Brown from Empire, Rhythm of Hope, My Global Mind, ones that weren't necessarily, like, there's no Silent Lucidity on here, there's no Empire, there's no I Don't Believe in Love, none of those songs, Take Hold of the Flame, there's none of those ones on here. It's a single live disc, and this one's a US one, and this one, Sanctuary, is distributed by BMG. That's what the disc itself looks like, and by this time they had got another member, a guy named Mike Stone, on second guitar, and it's nothing at all to do with the late producer Mike Stone that worked with Queen and Whitesnake and April Wine and so many others. I just took various pictures of the group inside the CD. I'm not all that familiar with the CD, to be honest with you, because I think there are better live examples of Queensrÿche. It's one to have. In 2006, they actually had a top 20 album, and it was heavily hyped because they were doing a sequel to the classic Operation Mindcrime. A lot of controversy surrounding the album. First, I'll talk about it, the album itself. This is Operation Mindcrime 2. Came out in 2006, and it was released on Rhino Records, which is distributed by Warner. This is a Canadian version. Just for quick reference, they went out of their way to make sure that there was some continuity here. So here are the 2 Mindcrimes. Same logo, same feel to the drawings, same look to the back cover design. They wanted to make sure, they wanted it to sound like they recorded it at the same time, and I'll give them credit, it does, and I don't mean that in a bad way. It was produced by a guy named Jason Slater, who, like Kelly Gray, is definitely on the Jeff Tate side of things when the split happens. I'm sure you all know about the split. And this basically is a sequel. It's a sequel to the story. It picks up where the first one left off. The disc itself, Sister Mary there on the, I'm assuming, or maybe it's Lady Liberty, I'm not sure. There's a lot of, very political. These 2 albums are also very politically motivated. There's some controversy, as I said, over who actually plays on this album. There's been a lot of, you know, this is sort of, I think, I'm not sure, but I think this might have been where the dissent started in the Queensrÿche camp between Jeff Tate and the rest of the group. I'm really not sure, but there are stories, depending on who you believe, that the band members didn't actually play on very little of this, and that it was Jason Slater and Kelly Gray and Jeff Tate putting the album together. Whatever the case may be, and this album gets slagged a lot, I really liked it. I really thought it was good. I didn't have a problem with it. If you're a fan of Ronnie James Dio, the late Ronnie James Dio, He appears on this album as Dr. X on, I think it's an Intentional Confrontation. And he would appear with them on stage too, which we'll get to that a little bit more. So the next thing, of course, there's a tour for Operation Mindcrime 1 and 2. They commemorated that with a live video or DVD and a CD, and this is the CD version of Mindcrime at the Moore Theater in their hometown of Seattle. And this is a double disc set on Rhino Records, American copy. Disc 1 is the first Mindcrime album, Disc 2 is the second, plus encores of Walk in the Shadows and Jet City Woman. With these double CD cases, it's 50-50 whether they flip out this way or this way. So in this case, this one opens up like this. Let's just take this booklet out here and have a look at it. That was the back cover of the booklet. Same lineup. It's still, Mike Stone on second guitar here, although that will change eventually. Like a lot of other classic rock bands, and they were getting to be called a classic rock band at this point, like a lot of the older bands were doing, they were doing covers albums. So Queensrÿche in 2007 did one last album for, no, sorry, not one last album for Rhino, another album for Rhino, but this one was a covers album called Take Cover. Kind of a punny title. They're all wearing gas masks there. And this is an interesting set of songs. This is a Canadian CD. And on this they cover Pink Floyd, Buffalo Springfield, the O'Jays, Queen, Black Sabbath, The Police, Peter Gabriel, and U2, among others. I don't listen to this one a lot, but it's, I don't know, they didn't do kind of obvious covers, which is admirable. And it talks a little bit about why they made the choices that they made for the songs to cover. Also, Eddie Jackson, the bass player from Queensrÿche, he always writes his credits very strange, or either backwards, or there's no spaces between the words and just about impossible to read. So, this is weird, but 2007, for whatever reason, was a busy year for Queensrÿche product, because this was also the year that their previous label, Capital EMI, put out another best of Queensrÿche. This one's called the Best of Queensrÿche Sign of the Times. This came out in multiple formats. I got the double CD set. There is a single one. There are a few good drawing cards to picking this up. You can't really see from the back cover there, but I'm just showing you what it looks like. This contains Real World, which is from the Last Action Hero soundtrack. It's the first time it appeared on a Queensrÿche album. It appears 3 demos that from Jeff Tate's previous band Myth that became Queensrÿche songs. Take Hold of the Flame, Walk in the Shadows, Before the Storm. Another song called Waiting for the Kill. Acoustic remix of I Dream in Infrared. Dirty Little Secret, which was from the Empire Sessions and ended up on the bonus edition of that. Last Time in Paris, great song. Always liked that song, which curiously appeared on the Adventures of Ford Fairlane soundtrack, so it never appeared on a Queensrÿche album. Their MTV version, or yeah, a few songs from their MTV Unplugged appearance, including a version of Scarborough Fair from Simon and Garfunkel, and a new track called Justified, which Chris DeGarmo had a hand in. So here you go. Double CD opens up like that. Each of the CDs, Tri-Reg logo on them, different color scheme. And somewhere here, there's a booklet. Usign graphics. you can tell, and it almost gets to the point where it's like, I don't know, like some of these graphics look like they could have been for anybody except for the Tri-Reg logo, and they just used them. But that's the way it goes with album graphics. Sometimes it doesn't really matter, and they like the look of them. Right up in here about the band as well. And oddly enough, You see the Queensrÿche logo there with the stars and stripes on it. Says, "Is there hope for America?" That's kind of an interesting segue into the next Queensrÿche album, which came out in 2009, which is called American Soldier. This was their last one. It really was, honest. The last one to come out on Rhino Records. This is another American version, and this is a concept album. This is a concept album based on many conversations that Geoff Tate had with soldiers, either active or veterans, including his own father, who I think served in the Korean War. He was chatting with him one afternoon, and his dad had never really talked about the war much, started talking about it, and he found the story so fascinating that basically a lot of them became lyrics. So that's what that was the whole point of doing this album. So, next Queensrÿche album, a very controversial one. It's kind of where the 2010s has been the controversial decade for them. The only one that they did for Roadrunner Records, Dedicated to Chaos. I like the album graphic, for good things to see here. This one's on Roadrunner. I've actually got, this is a deluxe edition that has 4 extra songs. The way that they've got the songs here, some of them are upside down, some of them aren't. There are some really strange material on this album. That's the nicest thing I can say about it. A couple of songs are okay. This is definitely not something that crosses my path all that much. Yeah, even the way that the lyrics are written, it's kind of supposed to be arty, but ends up just being annoying. So it was in the wake of this album that the split between Geoff Tate and the rest of Queensrÿche happened. And also, by this time, Mike Stone had left. He'd left after Tate covered and was replaced by Parker Lundgren, who actually for a time was Geoff Tate's son-in-law. So there were tons of issues that were going on. Matt and I did an episode talking about the 2013-2015, where we had Queensrÿche on one side and Geoff Tate / Operation Mindcrime on another. So I'm not going to go into much detail about that, but I will show you the CDs in context of this episode. The first CD to come out by either side came out in 2013. It's Queensrÿche. It's called Queensrÿche, Frequency Unknown. So this has Jason Slater, Kelly Gray, and this is the one that's got all the guest stars playing on here. You know, Brad Gillis, Dave Meniketti, Rudy Sarzo, and still think it's a pretty good album. And I've got the two CDs because there were 2 versions of remix. Again, consult our earlier episode for more about that. And then later in 2013, the Core Band released their first non-Tate album, simply titled Queensrÿche. This is the first one that Todd LaTorre appeared on as lead singer. I think it's still just a fantastic album, a bit on the short side, but still really, really good. So this is the deluxe edition, which I do go into in another episode, but just quickly, more of a standard-looking digipack version inside of it. And none of this stuff I've used. It's a sticker, guitar pick, some buttons, patch. This was released on Century Media. And so far, still the newest Queensrÿche album as of the filming of this, Condition Human, which was, honestly, I can't remember if it was Kickstarter or Pledge Music, but here it is, my autographed edition by all the guys in the band. Thanks, guys. Like this one a lot. Wish I had these last 2 on vinyl. Maybe someday. Still think the graphics are a little bit dark. The song title's written up there, but it's really, really hard to tell. And I like this album a lot. I'm really surprised that there hasn't been a live DVD come out of the Todd LaTorre version of Queensrÿche as of yet. But I look forward to more, and of course so far, again, as of this taping, Operation Mindcrime's released 2 albums. There's supposed to be 2 in a trilogy, and I've talked about those as well. So that's my Queensrÿche CD collection. I don't have anything, but I don't have any of the remastered versions. I'm missing probably some songs here and there, but a lot of great music there. So again, you know, sending out happy birthday wishes to both Todd LaTorre and Michael Wilton. And as always, I thank you for watching Tim's Vinyl Confessions.